يضيق خلقك. الحمد لله ما حد بياخذ منك رزقك. هدي وارتاح ثابر واطمح من حقك. بس بلاش العين، لا 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 ما تسوى الدنيا تضيق خلقك. الحمد لله ما حد بياخذ منك رزقك. هدي وارتاح ثابر واطمح من حقك. بس بلاش.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to ITV's Community Showcase. First one for the year 2020. Alhamdulillah. What a better way to start with a person who has been involved in humanitarian work with an organization that has been involved in humanitarian work for over 30 years plus. Not a stranger to the screens for ITV for the year 2019 as well. And that is none other than Hafiz Imraan Choonara, Director of Africa Muslims Agency. We say Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh to you, Hafiz Imraan. Once again, Jazakallah for joining us this evening on our ITV Community Showcase platform, and we hope you had a well and rested break for the year 2019.
Alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Of course, Zahir, and of course, always a pleasure being here on ITV. And yeah, absolutely excited about 2020. 2019 was incredibly busy. Alhamdulillah, it's always great to be busy. And yeah, very excited to be here today as well on the first community showcase for 2020.
Alhamdulillah. Generally, at the end of the year 2019, parents, students always looking forward to that report card. Oh, how did my child do for the year 2019? When it comes to humanitarian organizations, we know you guys have a report card that you now look and assess and digress and go intersect it at different intervals throughout the entire year. What was 2019 for Africa Muslims Agency?
Well, I tell you, subhanAllah, I mean, every single year when we look back, you just think the only reason that we exist, and anybody for that matter exists and can do the work that happens on the field when you look back, because in the moment you don't realize it. You just respond to a need and you do it as a team of people. But when I look back, always I think, subhanAllah, there's no way we could have planned it. The way Allah plans is incredible. And when I look back, I think about the achievements, so to speak, and sometimes it feels weird saying achievements, because achievements in the humanitarian world means you helped more people, you did more things, but also means there was a bigger need. Like there was more crises, there was more issues, people were struggling more, and you know, in more difficulties. There were more orphans, there were more difficult situations, and that's why you needed to help more. So it's an achievement in some way, but it's also, you know, I wish there was not anybody in the world that needed help. Yeah.
I've heard, and we've also seen Africa Muslim Agency going mad towards the end of year 2019, not in the literal aspect of it, contrary to popular belief when we speak to Hafiz Imraan Choonara. But when we look at the MAD campaign, just unpack that for our viewers back home.
You know, I think when you really think about the whole MAD campaign, and you're right, towards the end of 2019, we launched, well, after Ramadan, actually, around that time, we launched this concept of #MAD. You know, we live in a world of social media. We live in a world of things going viral. We live in a world of things just, you know, people forwarding things and sharing and liking and this kind. And it's the world we live in right now. It's not a bad or good thing. It's just what it is. And the #MAD, which stands for making a difference. And we wanted people to get behind this concept of doesn't matter who you are, where you are, make a difference in what you do. Make a difference wherever you are. So everything we focused on after that was just make a difference. Because if every human being decides, okay, I'm going mad, I'm going to make a difference, that's what I'm going to do, then it's whatever to them means making a difference positively. Now, yeah, we did start it with, you know, incredibly, alhamdulillah, around the country we ran some exhibitions. And in Cape Town, it was incredible. We had an art gallery that we used over a weekend, where we actually set up, and this is where we launched this concept of a #MAD. We actually set up a life-sized refugee tent inside the art gallery. And then we set up a village in Africa, how they go to school inside the art gallery. And then we built a water well inside the art gallery. You know, it's incredible. We built a replica of Sabra and Shatila, the Palestinian refugee camp, inside the art gallery. It's incredible. We had a masjid of Africa, straw masjid, inside the art gallery. We could perform salah when people were there for the exhibition. And it's incredible. And you know, when the refugees' shoes and clothing and had washed up on the shores, which we saw in the media, you know, over a year ago, we had art of that, pictures of that, of the actual authentic sandals and stuff of kids with their blood still on it, and just all of that exhibited. So it was, again, such a massive eye-opener to people, because it took people into the situation with the 3D glasses, with virtual reality. that they could actually visually be there. And the refugee tent was set up exactly like it is in Lebanon. And I tell you, people were in this art gallery in tears. And it just so much impacted people. Then part of the MAD campaign, and that happened in Cape Town, Durban, Johannesburg, and then we did something, I think, in Newcastle somewhere, and then we did something in the souk in Durban, similarly with the hashtag MAD. Also what we did at that time with this MAD concept was, let's take people into the field. So we actually did live crossovers into Africa, into a hut, talking to families where people could be in the art gallery or be in the Durban event or Joburg event and actually see live right now as we're sitting here, what are those what's that family going through right now? Or in the refugee tent. Exactly, as I'm sitting here right now, there's another human being in another part of the world. It's like if I get on Skype with somebody, they're live, okay? So if I'm on Skype with someone in the refugee tent, this is right now. That's what that other human being, thousands of miles away, is talking to me about their struggles. So the MAD campaign just raised such a massive awareness, and we're continuing with that right through 2020 because, again, it's making a difference.
I was just going to say, seeing is believing. And generally, in any population you go to, everybody wants to see, to believe something. And you've brought that aspect of seeing is believing to the individual cities throughout South Africa. So you've unpacked MAD for us for 2019. What has the response been so far for after the month of Ramadan and the inception of MAD?
Wow, I tell you, the response, again, it always fascinates me because I've got to remind myself that, and then this morning again, I just said, Ya Allah, guide us with wisdom and humility. Because it's not us. It can never be us. We're just tools in the process. Yes, as AMA, we have an incredible team around us. We have staff, we have volunteers, we have all of this around the country, which obviously they add incredible value, but it's still not us. It's the humility of it is that Allah plans it. Like, in Ramadan, when we brought in a representative from Lebanon, from the refugee camps there, to come and talk to people here in South Africa about what actually happens. And then on ITV, we had a pledge line, and we had one little snippet that went through on ITV, and it went absolutely viral. There was one person here in Johannesburg that just launched it on their platform, and it went viral. And that was insane because within literally, she set a target to raise 100,000 Rand in 4 days, and over I think a couple of weeks, it was 1.7 million Rand or something. That was just one thing. And that cost nothing just because it went viral. And then we actually took women to Lebanon, to the camps, to meet with fellow women and children in their tents to go and see the situation and feel it. So the response was beyond what I could have ever planned and what I could have ever imagined. But we're internally grateful to Almighty Allah because ultimately He knows what is the requirement on the ground, what is the need, and He knows where the money is and where the ability is to help. And Allah just connects the two, and we are just all tools in the process.
Alhamdulillah. Talking about the need on the ground, especially within Africa and Lebanon, you made mention of it. We'll go for a brief break, inshallah. When we come back, we'll just touch the top of Lebanon and what's the need there and in Africa, inshallah. Absolutely. We'll be back shortly after this.
لا 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 ما تسوى الدنيا تضيق خلقك الحمد لله لا 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 ما تسوى الدنيا تضيق خلقك الحمد لله.
Welcome back. Yes, hashtag MAD for Africa Muslims Agency for the inception of this campaign 2019. We just heard the great response and phenomenal response that Africa Muslims Agency has had towards the hashtag MAD campaign towards the end of the year 2019. If you have just tuned in, we're talking Africa Muslims Agency's report card for the year 2019 and a look ahead for the year 2020. We are joined by the director of Africa Muslims Agency, Hafiz Imraan Choonara. Hafiz Imraan, before the break, we spoke briefly about Lebanon. You touched about the delegation going on there to Lebanon and also the need on the ground within Africa. Let's talk more about Lebanon first. I know we'll need much more time to discuss all the issues when it comes to the operations that Africa Muslims Agency runs with, but just a brief history of Africa Muslims Agency's involvement in Lebanon.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you hit the nail on the head. At some point, we need an unpacking of each project. Where specifically we can unpack our orphan project or feeding projects or water projects or whatever, or education projects. And that's important at some point. But today, very quick overview. So for a few minutes, maybe in Lebanon, and I remember in Lebanon, we're operating there for Palestinian and Syrian refugees, primarily, and of course, needy Lebanese people. Now, what maybe people don't know, or maybe people are seeing this on the media right now, is that Lebanon's going through a very, very difficult time right now, politically. And so there's a lot of Lebanese people as well right now suffering. They've got an economic crisis that they haven't seen in a long time. And there are now Lebanese people also who had jobs like you and I, who are now into committing suicide, and because they're just being laid off, they got no money. It's incredible what is going on right now. But anyway, back to 2019. So for example, we covered a lot of feeding there in Ramadan, in the camps. I personally went in the last 10 days of Ramadan with a couple of our volunteers as well to go and actually go and see and oversee the feeding in Ramadan. And to go and see the Eid clothes shopping, and we took kids from the camps who can never leave the camps. We took them to for like an Eid celebration and shopping for clothing, and it was all funded by the South African donors, alhamdulillah. Then of course we built dignity tents in these camps, because also in 2019 a big development there after Ramadan was that a lot of their refugee camps were destroyed. Anything that had a solid structure was completely broken down. When the authorities passed the regulation specifically to that. And organizations like us and others had to come back and build camps again based on what the new specifications were. Yeah. And so, it was such a warm, heartwarming moment when the delegation went from South Africa and came there and saw massive camps with AMA signs everywhere, and just to realize that this was funded by donors in South Africa, subhanAllah. Then the bakery project in Lebanon, for example, again, feeding, because a lot of these refugees, the only food they have is bread that they would have on a daily basis, or every second day, every third day. So the bakery project is super, super important. Then, this is something most donors would not know about, because it just kind of happened in the process, was that we funded over, through donors here in Johannesburg actually, almost 60 operations in hospitals for children, adults, old people that needed operations, but they didn't have any money. And it was either going to be life-threatening operations, or paralyzing stuff, or whatever the case is, that they needed an operation urgently. And 55 of those operations were done, almost 60 were done through donors in South Africa, which is incredible. For example, just one of those operations, just one child I'm talking about, cost $35,000 for the one. He was going to be paralyzed for life, and his situation would deteriorate as the years go on. Now he started to walk. It's incredible, subhanAllah. And that's again from South African donors. That's 1 out of 55 operations. And of course they vary in prices, etc., etc. So, and then of course the big highlight that most people remember the last part of 2019 was the Basamat project. Because the ladies delegation went over there, came back and raised over 3 million rand in the last 2.5 months of 2019 just to set up a psychosocial service center for the whole of 2020 for 400 children in the north of Lebanon, Akkar, for psychosocial service benefits to these children for the whole of 2020 and their mums or guardians. So it's incredible what has happened in Lebanon in 2019.
Like we said, we need much more time to unpack all these issues. We've just scraped the top, so to say, when we're talking about Lebanon. We know AMA operates in Africa, also situated in most African countries, serving the communities there. Just a brief history of AMA's involvement in Africa.
Oh man, 2019 again. Again, it's still fascinating because I still cannot. To the human mind, we have very limited understanding. Allah's knowledge is all-encompassing, of course. And when I think about it again, I thought, and logically, you'd think that because we spend so much energy in the Palestinian and Syrian refugee camps. I also spent time in Afghanistan in 2019 as well to go and assess the situation there. And that's like a forgotten nation. Again, we can discuss another time. But I thought, okay, so that might affect some operations in Africa. Actually, to the contrary. In 2019, we exceeded the last 2 years of 2017 and 18 of what the donors gave for Africa water projects. For Ramadan, feeding in Africa. Over 1,000 tons of food was sent to Mozambique and Malawian villages just in the month of Ramadan alone, just to give hot meals and to give food to the villages. That's over a million people get fed throughout the month of Ramadan just in those processes, besides South Africa. So it just blows my mind. I mean, there was we're sitting now almost 10,000 water wells built just in Mozambique and Malawi alone, just through the South African donors, let alone the rest of Africa. And just in 2019 alone was 1,142. I got the numbers 2 days ago for 2019. And that exceeded 2017 and 2018. Now, again, I just think, wow, when Allah plans, again, I just think our job is not to decide the outcome. Our job is to make sure that we have our niyyah intact and that we work our brains out with all the effort and energy that Allah has given us, and then leave the outcome to Him. That's His job. Let's not stress about that. But our job is to make the effort. We have to really make the effort. So the water well project, the masjids, the boreholes, we exceeded the number that we did in 2018 and 2017. Madrasas, maktabs. Just yesterday I had to sign off the fact that now we will be funding for 2020 almost 200 maktabs in one place in Mozambique. That's 200 madrasas. That's every single day that kids go there every single day to maktabs for the whole of 2020 because of what we raised in 2019 for that, and we exceeded our expectation in 2019, subhanAllah.
Alhamdulillah, setting the bar very high for the year 2020 already for AMA. Inshallah, we go for a break, Hafiz Imraan. When we come back, we talk briefly again about, we know we're on the cusp or brink of the month of Ramadan once more. We know AMA very involved when it comes to the blessed month of Ramadan, not only in South Africa, but different countries in Africa, as you made mention of the thousands, tons of food that you people have sent. And then we'll talk about the year ahead, inshallah. We'll be back shortly after this break.
لا 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 ما تسوى الدنيا تضيق خلقك الحمد لله لا 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 ما تسوى الدنيا تضيق خلقك الحمد لله.
Director of Africa Muslims Agency, joining us here on ITV Community Showcase, and we're speaking about Africa Muslims Agency and how they have fared for the year 2019, spoken about all the expectations and more expectations that have been met when it came to 2019 and the projects that AMA carried out. Now going to be looking forward for the year 2020, but before we go on to that, Hafiz Imraan, we know Ramadan around the corner here, plus minus under 100 days left for the blessed month of Ramadan, and we know preparations start from about now or even before that for the blessed month of Ramadan. When it comes to the Operation Ramadan 1441 from AMA's perspective?
Well, you know, it's interesting you ask, because you're right, just under 100 days, and preparations start already in December for this, because Ramadan's coming closer every year, so we've got to be very aware of this. And Ramadan, of course, in South Africa is in winter as well. So we winter and people are fasting and they're feeling cold, and we know the cold in some part of South Africa gets really, really dire. And really, really tough. Especially, I mean, you and I feel it, but we're in our homes. And then there are people living under bridges. There are people living in rural areas of South Africa that really, really feel it. So there's the winter and there's the Ramadan element to it. So all our Ramadan projects in South Africa involve the winter projects as well. We involve blankets and gloves and scarves and all this winter packs together with our Ramadan packs because it's important. And yes, we do. And when it comes to winter, of course, we'll do winter throughout. It's not a Muslim thing. Remember, winter is not a Muslim thing. Winter is a human thing. So it doesn't matter. And all our projects, of course, except the feeding of actual Ramadan, that's a Muslim thing, obviously. But every other project, whether it's a water well, whether it's, you're building refugee tents or whatever the case is, it can't only be for a Muslim person. It's for a human being. Allah created every human being. And so, of course, zakah is in its place, and that gets used for specific purposes, for a specific group of people. But when it comes to lillah, sadaqah, and those kind of things. So Ramadan, yes, massive preparations underway already for Mozambique. Just yesterday I had to sign off our allocation for Mozambique, for Malawi, for different parts of Africa, for different parts of South Africa. I'm having discussions with Afghanistan, because we're doing Ramadan feeding in Afghanistan. We'll be doing Ramadan feeding in Lebanon, in the camps again. We'll be doing Ramadan feeding in South Africa, of course. So that's a massive, massive project, definitely.
Inshallah. And then we know after the month of Ramadan is a Qurbani already on that doorstep after the month of Ramadan. We know the preparation for sending animals. When we've always spoken about this last year, you always tell us that it's been months and months in advance because of the preparations to make an animal reach a specific destination. How's that going on?
That's also going very well, alhamdulillah. And you see, what we do, we start talking about that right now already. And the minute Ramadan finishes, we purchase the animals, because there's 2.5 months left for Eid after that, for Eid al-Adha. And so then simply we start sending the animals to the villages, because we have to make sure, because again, AMA's view on Udhiyah is specifically we want the animals to be in the village at least a couple of months before Eid al-Adha, because we want the villagers to rear the animals, to understand the process of this, not just to slaughter it in one place and send the meat. Now, that's not bad or wrong. It's just that we choose a different approach, because we want part of everything we do to be a sustainable, educational da'wah tool for the village. Because I don't want a village in Africa to think that Eid al-Adha means we get free meat. You know, it's not bad. It's good for them. They get fed and all that. But what if there can be a da'wah process 2.5 months prior to that of why we do this? Why do I care for this animal and then slaughter it? What happens in this process? What's the significance of this? So there's a whole process around that as well, subhanAllah. So for 2020, when we're thinking about our plan for 2020, and we've already talked about this, and I said this many times, and I've got to remind myself and our staff and our team around the country and internationally, is that when Allah trusts us with more donations or more donors, that is a massive amana. It's a massive responsibility. Because remember, when Allah does that, Allah is not rewarding you for the work you did do. In my view, He's checking you for the work you're going to do. Because now He's saying, do you have faith in me to give more? I gave more, give more. So we every single year, alhamdulillah, and this is always a stress of mine, but I always just got to say, Ya Allah, you know best, is just to allocate more than what we did last year. We got to start the year with faith. The point of Islam as Iman is having faith. What does faith mean? Believing in the unseen. Something you can't yet predict or say for sure, but you believe it. Okay? And we have this, like you just said earlier, seeing is believing. Where Iman comes in is believing is seeing. You believe first, then you see it. And every single year I stress, because I'm a human being, of course, and then you realize, okay, you know what? Allah gave us such success last year, alhamdulillah, so to speak. Let's give more. Let's do more. Let's do more countries, more people, more feeding, more this, more water wells. And we allocate massive amounts beforehand. Because remember, Ramadan, we have to allocate the money prior to Ramadan. We've got to buy the food. If I get zakah from you on the 2nd of Ramadan, I can't go buy the food on the 3rd of Ramadan, give it to the guy on the 4th of Ramadan. I mean, I could do that, but the guy started fasting on the 1st of Ramadan. And he's in a village in Mozambique somewhere. I'm going to get it to him. So we've got to allocate millions of rands prior to Ramadan. Buy the food, get it to the areas, so that the 1st of Ramadan there's food.
Talking about do more, we're running out of time, Hafiz. Imraan, with regards to 2020, and you've made mention of looking at countries of Afghanistan, etc. How is AMA going to be doing more for the year 2020?
Well, first of all, and maybe we'll unpack this at a later stage, but first of all, we've now we've created a specific orphan project, because we are doing orphan projects now in multiple countries. So we'll have an orphan department, and we'll unpack that at a later stage, where specifically how orphans are handled and what we do in the Syrian camps, in the Palestinian camps, what we're doing in Mozambique for orphans there, what we're doing in South Africa for orphans here, what we're doing in Afghanistan for orphans there. I was there. We're sending a delegation there. We're sending a few delegations this year to different parts around the world. I was in Jordan with the United Nations maybe a couple of months ago to assess the situation there as well. So there's various projects. We'll have orphan project. Then we'll have the psychosocial services, of course. Then we'll cover more water projects, again, because that is... But again, in South Africa, there's a massive need. And I want to say again to our viewers, is that remember, I know there's economic crisis, I know there's situation, I know we have load shedding, we have all the kind of stuff that stifle us a little bit. But don't fear. Don't fear. Because remember, in Allah's court, there is no such thing as a lack. The minute we fear and hold back, Allah will hold back from us. Because we're holding back from humanity. The minute you open and let go and give, Allah allows things to flow through you. You become a river, not a reservoir. You don't hoard it, you let it flow. And Allah will let it flow through you. So we want to thank every single donor for 2019, but say, you know what, man, inshallah, together, we can raise the bar, because it's about other human beings.
Inshallah. 30 seconds or less, last words of wisdom or advice to the viewers back home, especially to the donors of 2019.
I want to say shukran. I want to say thank you. May Allah bless you. You know, Allah has already blessed you, because maybe there was something going to happen in your family that you didn't know about, that I didn't know about. Maybe my son was going to become ill. Allah protect us. And because of work we did together, maybe Allah removed that. And I didn't know, right? You don't know what Allah's already removed from your life as a calamity because of what you did in 2019. But you believe that Allah blessed you by removing something or giving you something, even though you might not have asked for it. So remember that when 2020 now you're planning your charitable giving. Remember that sometimes you don't see the benefit right now in money coming back to you. But you don't know what is going to happen in your family tomorrow that Allah removed, but you didn't know. But Allah blessed you because He knew that would have destroyed you. But you don't know about it. So we always have faith that Allah always, always, always blesses our good niyyah and our good deeds, inshallah.
Alhamdulillah. Director of Africa Muslims Agency, Hafiz Imraan Choonara. Yes, faith, very important when it comes to any mu'min, any believer. We say Jazakallah, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. And there we have it, to unpacking briefly 2019 with Africa Muslims Agency's Director, Hafiz Imraan Choonara. And yes, let's go mad. Let's try and make a difference. Hashtag mad for Africa Muslims Agency, and how we can get involved in alleviating the plight and suffering of not only the people within South Africa, but within our communities around us and our borders across internationally, as made mention by Hafiz, Imraan, Choonara. You're looking at countries like Afghanistan, etc., how we can make a difference, inshallah. From myself and the rest of the ITV team here, fi amanillah, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
لا 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 ما تسوى الدنيا تضيق خلقك، الحمد لله ما حد بياخذ منك رزقك، هدي وارتاح ثابر واطمح من حقك، بس بلاش العين. لا 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 ما تسوى الدنيا تضيق خلقك، الحمد لله ما حد بياخذ منك رزقك، هدي وارتاح ثابر واطمح من حقك.